may have an ace up his sleeve and he's just trying to shut the conversation down. Or I really could be getting sandbagged right here and now. And then he would have said, well, I've got my hypothesis, I'll go test them. And I won't take action until I know which action I should take. That's the difference between living your story and living your career path. Twists and turns, expected. Fear of loss, I can't make the fear of loss go away. But if I can help you remember why you're there, if you can live your story and stay focused on what's important, you're never losing, you're never having a car do the duty of an important relationship. Instead, you're making trade-offs between things of equal value. This scene that is up here is a scene from Rocky III. It's a fight between Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T, and Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone. And this movie epitomizes the idea of living your story. It is a cheesy movie, and it is entirely worth watching the next time it's on cable. In this movie, Rocky is the world champ. And early on, he stops acting the world champ. He stops living his own story. And he starts play acting. He starts acting the way he thinks a world champ athlete should act. And Clubber Lang comes along, tough guy from the south side of Chicago. And he says, I'm living my story. I have the eye of the tiger. Rocky doesn't have it, I have it. And there's the whole build-up and montage. And they meet for a fight. And right before the fight, Clubber Lang is interviewed by the press. And a reporter asks him, Clubber, any predictions for the fight? And some of you know this. Clubber Lang, Mr. T looks at the camera and says, predictions? Pain. And he says it just like that. You will not find a better Mr. T impression. So he knows. He knows that Rocky has traded in the Maserati and the watches and the fan adulation and all the other stuff for what it really means to live the life of a champion. Clubber Lang knows that when he takes it away from Rocky, when he wins that fight, he's going to hurt Rocky like nobody's business. Because not only is Rocky going to have to deal with the fact that he just lost the belt, he's also going to have to deal with this gaping hole in his being that was filled up with stuff. And that stuff is now gone because he lost the fight. It's not going to flow. Nobody wants the ex-world champ doing the Rolex commercial. So all that stuff is gone. Now he's got this gaping hole. And by the way, the movie has a happy ending. There's the whole Eye of the Tiger montage. Rocky gets it back. Puts all the goodness back in his life. I would prefer you not need to learn that lesson the hard way. Learn it now. Don't ever make the trade-off. Nice car is great, just don't ever let it do the duty of a loving relationship. Competition? Competition goes away. Your whole notion of competition changes when you are living your story. This one is particularly apropos today. The whole theme of today is I to we. And here we go. When you are living your story, you are the hero of your own story. Nobody can take that away from you. Nobody else can be the hero of your story. I can't be the protagonist in your story. You can have a big story, little story. You can have a walk-on part in a cage, a walk-on part in a war, you can have a lead role in a cage. It doesn't matter. It's your story. I'm a child of the 70s. I grew up watching Justice League, All of Justice, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man. Spider-Man wasn't in there. Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, and Robin. The Wonder Twins and Gleek, Green Lantern, Aquaman. They would all come together and they would solve crime. And there was never an episode in which Wonder Woman tugged on Superman's cape and said, hey Superman, I'd like to handle the press conference on this one if you don't mind. She never did. She didn't have to worry about it. Because when you know that you're the hero of your own story and you're comfortable with what your story is, you can collaborate. It's no skin off your nose to come together. You don't find yourself in the position of my friend in California who had to do a 3-month victory lap to get credit. Because when you're living your story, you're occupying the box, and you're bringing to the table the things that are uniquely you. You're embracing all of it. And if you embrace all of it from the beginning, you never need to go back and do that victory lap and say, well, you thought I was just a commodity. Let me try and pack all this individual stuff in now. It's too late. And finally, fear of failure. Before we're trying to thread this needle, fear of failure fundamentally changes. Now you look at your life and you say, I'm not sure if opportunity's knocking or if failure's knocking, but either way, I gotta move. And it doesn't matter if I head straight or if I take any one of these paths, because they're all adventures. And some of them probably lead to failure, and some of them probably lead to success, but I don't know. I could head down this path that I think leads to failure, and it may give me a clearer view to my goal than I have today. Because when you make the shift to a story, you get out of that bridge, you get out of the box. You're no longer working in a world of straight lines and right angles. You're working in a more organic, fluid world that makes sense to you intuitively, innately. You are built to live a story. So that's the case for living your story. Quick gut check. Some of you may want to do a quick gut check. I'm assuming that everyone here has a LinkedIn profile. If you don't, you should have a LinkedIn profile. I see a lot of them that look like this. This is somebody who is living a career path. 2 years ago, a pipe broke in my house. I did not hear the rushing water and say, oh my gosh, I need an innovative dynamic problem solver with 15 years of experience in flow-based systems. I said, I need a plumber. This is the same person embracing his story. This is an actual person. And you can see it. This person knows who he is. And scar tissue. Isn't afraid to allow some personality to shine through. Covers the same bases, but does it in a way that says, look, I know you got a box. Here I am. If I fit your box, great, I'm your guy. If I don't fit the box, next. That tension is here between the organization and the individual. It's not here. The magic question becomes, how do you do this? I want to talk real quickly, 3 things. If you want to go live your story, everybody thinks I'm going to talk about this, it's going to be this motivational. It's not. This is heavy. But like I said before, it's practical. This is something you can actually do today. You can actually go home and you can actually change your perspective today. You don't even have to go home and do it now. It's a decision. And the first thing that you can do to start living your story is decide to live one day at a time. There's a concept in psychology called risk homeostasis. Basically, I call it chaos homeostasis. I say there's a certain threshold of chaos that all of us need in our lives. And we can't go above it, and we can't go below it. Right? With mine, I can't keep my desk and my closet clean at the same time. If I clean my closet, my desk falls apart. If I get the desk clean and the closet clean, so if I try and do both, then I start fighting with my wife. It's just weird. There's a certain amount of chaos that we need. And in fact, auto manufacturers know this. As cars get safer, driving becomes more erratic. There's a certain amount of risk that we want, that we need when we're driving. It's different for different people. But whatever that threshold is, we find it. And if you make me wear a seatbelt and you make me have a bunch of airbags, I'm just going to drive faster. Because I'm going to find a way to put that risk back in my life. What this means is that when you try to live your entire career path, when you try to see how you're going to thread this needle from start to finish, there are so many unknowns, there are so many risk factors that you choke. Analytically, your brain can't process it. Risk homeostasis comes into play and says, whoa, too much. We have crossed our threshold for the amount of risk that we can take. So what do? You live one day at a time. You let the story unfold. You enjoy the story as it unfolds. How many of you, just answer it in your head, how many of you have ever read the last page of a book just to know how it ends? And then went back and actually read the book. I did it with every book in the Harry Potter series. I had to know that Harry was going to survive this time. Wasn't enough for me that it was called Harry Potter. I needed to know. Knowing the ending of your story is not what life is about. It's not where you get your sense of fulfillment. That's not what living your story is. Living your story is living your story. Living each page, letting it unfold. You know the ending. You want to know the ending of your story? Picture yourself as a 95-year-old. Write yourself a letter. Your today self a letter. Consultants do this all the time. Marshall Goldsmith has made this famous. He's got a great YouTube video where he walks through the exercise. You're 95, write yourself a letter today. Thank yourself for the 95th birthday party that somebody just threw for you. And talk about who threw it, and why they threw it, and who showed up, and what was said about you in all the speeches. And when you do that, guess what? You have now just written the ending of your story. Now go live it. One day at a time. Stop worrying so much about the future. Second thing is you gotta say yes. I grew up in a time and a place, and the time and place that a lot of you grew up in, it was even worse with this. I grew up being told, do well in school so you have more opportunities when you get into the working world. And what nobody told me was, I was being trained to